It's fine because I basically had a stroke there. So yeah. Do you know what? I actually I started looking at my Magnum of Art of Darkness, and I just started thinking about that. I completely zoned out. I'm sorry. I completely zoned out. And then I was like, shit. And, I'm back in the room and I had no idea where I was.
And welcome to another episode of the Neutral Cider Hotel podcast. My name is Gabe Cook, and coming up a bit later on the show, we have going to be speaking with Jonny Hamilton from Pellicle magazine, one of our finest and favourite publications. We'll also be tasting a fantastic single variety Dabinet cider from Bushel+Peck in Gloucestershire. And finally, we'll be diving back into some of the questions that you've asked of us over the course of the last few weeks, and to see if we can come up with the answers or just blag it as we potentially normally do. But first of all, I wanted to say that I've been thinking about hotels over the course of this last week or so, which, to be fair, on the face of it is a bit of a weird thing. But, we are the proprietors of a hotel. And so I thought that I might undertake a bit of professional research. We're back into lockdown again here in the UK, and thinking, you can never try hard enough to be as the best at what you do. And we run a hotel that specializes in cider, so I thought I'd do my research half-assed as per normal via the medium of film and TV. So I start off with The Shining. I immediately regretted that. Yes. That wasn't a good way to start. A bit scary. I then actually delved into Twin Peaks. Now, I know that Mr. Jonny Hamilton is somebody who is a fan or has certainly watched Twin Peaks. If anybody hasn't seen Twin Peaks, do, because it's trippy and just brilliantly written. The first series especially is just amazing. And the White Lodge will come into play. The old the hotel there is a good setting with many of the great scenes. And then just latterly, the Night Manager, because John le Carré, famous spy novelist, he passed away just a couple of weeks ago, and there was a great BBC adaptation that I hadn't seen, but my girlfriend Jules had seen, and said, "We've got to watch this," and it's amazing. And old Jamie Hiddleston, hunky Jamie Hiddle Piddle, man, he pulls out a good performance, and he is
Hiddle Piddle.
Hiddle Piddle, isn't that his nickname, or have I just shown my hand there?
Honestly,
But so it's kind of got me thinking. It made me feel a little bit, he turns out to be quite the heroic, charming man. But the Night Manager, I kind of feel that maybe, I'm not sure whether we do actually run this hotel, or are we just the night managers who kind of hijack the hotel or every evening and just get the guests in that we want, and then come the morning, it's all gone back to normal. I don't know. So I just thought I'd share that with you, dear listeners, and to my co-hosts Martyn, Goodwin Sharman and Grant Hutchison, who now think that I'm possibly on crack. Let's see. Gentlemen, hotels, what do you think?
I feel a lot of the time like the bellboy at the Grand Budapest Hotel, just like rambling between things. But I can't. Also, the Best Marigold Hotel, whatever it is, I watched that at the cinema. No other hotels for me.
Did you ever watch that show, The Hotel, on Channel 4? It was like a fly on the wall thing, and it was just so disastrous and so car crash.
Was that people who were running hotels badly called in an expert to improve things?
I mean, they should have called in an expert, but they didn't. They just called in Channel 4. Like, come and watch me do this.
So it was all their, it was like their food. So like the fashion side of it was Gok Wan, wasn't it? And then it was like food by Gordon, and it was like a whole collection.
Oh no, was just a documentary where they put cameras in a hotel, and
in Liverpool.
I think they had a few series where they did different ones.
It was the Adelphi Hotel in Liverpool.
Oh, a different. I'm thinking of a different show, but
yeah, this was like one of the sort of mid-late 90s fly on the wall documentaries, like docu-soaps, where you became attached to these characters and they created sort of like a narrative in each episode. The episode with the fire alarm and the prince and the badger that escaped and caused hilarity and some danger at the same time.
Well, there was that. So what I'm just looking up now, actually, confusingly, there was one called Hotel, which is I think what you're talking about. There was one called The Hotel, which was in 2011. So Hotel was Adelphi. This was the Grosvenor Hotel in Torquay, run by Mark Jenkins. Honestly, it's probably, because it was on Channel 4, it's probably still on 4OD. Just absolute gold. Like, just like if Alan Partridge decided to run a hotel, it's just incredible. And it's sort of sad because you're like, oh my God, poor guy, what's he doing?
Alan Partridge, of course, didn't stay in a hotel, but he did stay in the Linton Travel Tavern that was equidistant between London and Norwich on the A19. Very, very good location. Absolutely fantastic.
Shall we move on from this before I chase both of you into the fucking maze outside in the snow with an axe?
Yeah, we're done. All work and no podcasting makes Grant a dull boy.
Listeners, we really do hope that you're still there. And you can write into us and let us know, where are your favourite hotels? What are your favourite hotel experience? What's the best cider in a hotel room moment that you have had? Do get in touch with us on our social media channels and we will read one out to you. And, we really do appreciate you continuing to listen to this podcast every week, as random and spurious as it may be, but that's part of the fun, isn't it? And if you want to help out even more, please tell your friends about us. Find us on the social media links, subscribe, rate and review on Apple Podcasts, and follow us on Spotify. Do you know what? I think maybe it's time that we open up the papers and let's see what's in the news. And so now it's time for the news. Let's see what is hot this week. I picked up something. Actually, that's not true. I didn't pick it up. Producer Scott picked it up and thankfully put it in front of all of us, which was the fact that Angry Orchard, which is the USA's largest cider brand, part of the Boston Beer Company, and produces the crisp is the sort of the primary and the ubiquitous big national brand, but they make a range of other products too, including the fantastic sweet drinks from the Walden Cider House. But they've always been good at making fun adverts, and they've done a new one about where sweet, the word sweet, has been bleeped out as a naughty word, playing upon the fact that, crisp is sweet, but that's not necessarily something to be ashamed of. And I just, in the UK, there was quite a proud heritage over the course of the last 40 years or so of being a lot of sort of TV advertising for ciders. You see very few these days. So just to see a fun and playful TV advert for a cider brand that doesn't just rely upon saying, we've been doing this for 974 years, you can trust us, to actually have some playfulness and some fun in there, trying to engage with the consumer, was something that I thought stood out as pretty cool. Good on them.
Yeah, every other industry has this is the revolution, this is the forward thinking. And then you look at all cider adverts, it's like, no, just doing it the same. What? And also the alcohol advertising that was around when I was growing up. The first notable one for me was the Budweiser advert, and not the Wuzzer. I think the Frogs was first. But there's moments like that where you're like, oh, it's just fucking nails it. So I'm glad that kind of the tradition is restored.
It's got to be the not in a comedy vein, but the Guinness horses ad, which
with the left field.
Is that Jonathan Glazer?
Could be. Don't know. Go. Are you on a laptop?
Yes. I'll go to Google.
I remember seeing that as well. I don't even remember when it was out, but I was definitely too young to drink. But thinking, oh, I want to drink that.
17th of March, 1999 was the release of the Guinness advert by Jonathan Glazer.
Yeah.
So the guy who did Sexy Beast.
Oh, what a great movie. What a great movie.
And Under the Skin. So that's when there was money in advertising at all levels.
I can't remember how it came about. It was a couple of years ago. Somebody who I was speaking to was telling me about an old brand from Taunton Cider, which was the UK's second biggest cider maker after Bulmers, that eventually got bought up, and the brands sort of all are now consumed under the C&C brand. So things like Natch and Blackthorn and stuff like that. But there was a brand called Red Rocks, which, do you know, the brand name probably still exists and is probably available maybe to purchase by somebody. But such was the money that was in cider, and that TV advertising as being maybe like the primary or the only outlet for being able to advertise your product. They put obviously a load of money into it and got Leslie Nielsen, he off of Naked Gun
of
fame, to do a proper Naked Gun-esque cider advert. And just like, it's great. I mean, it is of its time and all that kind of stuff. But just how amazing that a Hollywood star was promoting Taunton cider, basically. That's sort of where we had got to. And then obviously there was all the Strongbow adverts with the arrows and Johnny Vaughan. And before that, the very first Strongbow advert starred George Lazenby, who was the Australian Bond. He was it was black and white, and he was walking wistfully in the mountains in a lovely turtleneck sweater, talking about how he was a man, and as a man, he drinks Strongbow because he's a man. It wasn't really even a great deal of mention about cider, but I suppose that was the whole point of Strongbow, always, is that it's been positioned as a drink and a more masculine drink, and as a cider kind of second. So, as outdated and silly as many of these adverts are, the fact that there was significant TV cider advertising was something to be proud of. I think Thatcher's have got a new one out that talks about family credentials, but it could be a little more exciting, couldn't it?
Exactly.
Is Bill Bailey not in one? Is Bill Bailey not in
Really?
a recent ad with Thatcher's? No, did I make that up?
Here he goes again, committing to it and not knowing it.
Yeah, come on, see it through, Grant. Come on.
They make their labels with recycled nuts.
Hey, that was true.
That was true.
That was true.
One advert that's not alcohol, but drinks. That
Bill
I
Bailey
remember.
to narrate latest Thatcher cider advert. That was on the 15th of August, 2020.
There we go.
There you
I
go.
stand corrected, and we never ever doubt you ever again until about another 7 minutes time. Then we'll probably call you
I
out.
bet they're glad they got him in now, though. Before
The fee will have gone up for anybody who's outside the UK. He's just been on what's it called again?
what's it called again? Only the greatest TV show on the planet, Strictly Come Dancing, or Dancing with the Stars, as it's called in the US.
Thank you for the guy. He's so professional.
Man, I loved it. I'm sorry, I could do a whole podcast about it. I won't, but what I will say is it was a fantastic beam of light in a rather grim year this year to watch people dancing every Saturday night. It genuinely was a lot of fun. And Bill Bailey won it, which was kind of cool.
Fucking spoiler alert! I was just about to go watch it.
Oh yeah, sorry. People are on catch up still, aren't they?
That one guy in Poland listening, going like, "You fucker." To go back to it just quickly, the one advert that I remember fondly from my youth is Iron Brew had a billboard with a calf on it. And I think it was banned because it was a little cow baby looking at the camera, and it said, "When I get turned into a hamburger, I want to be washed down with Iron Brew."
Iron Brew had so many banned adverts.
Well, this is the modern world that we live in, that advertising actually, or promoting one's brand almost exclusively sits outside of TV these days. Such is the way of things. So there we go. Check it out. Have a look we'll have the link in the in the show notes, see what you think of this Angry Orchard advert, and let us know about your favourite cider adverts as well, dear listeners. Let's make this as participatory as possible. Come on down and enjoy. But right now, that's it for the news this week. So coming up next, we'll be speaking to the co-founder of Pellicle magazine, Mr. Jonny Hamilton. So now it's time for this week's interview, and it's with somebody we've been excited to speak to for quite a while now. Martyn, please do the honours of introducing our guest.
I know I'm not alone in saying that Pellicle has quickly become the place for food and drink writing. With a website and podcast, their work celebrates the culture and people of artisanal food and drink through a marriage of stunning photography and heartfelt writing. Its co-creator, Jonny Hamilton, is a mixed fermentation brewer, previously heading up Beavertown's Tempest project, and now at Edinburgh's Ones to Watch, New Barns Brewery with Emma, Gordon and Freddie. His first written piece, Where You're Meant to Be, is a personal exploration of how Pellicle came to be and all the struggles leading up to it. Checking into the hotel tonight, it's Jonny Hamilton. How you doing, bud?
Good evening. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. It's nice to be here.
Happy with your room?
It's great.
Room service is a bit dodge, I would say. Stay away from the Eggs Benedict if I were you.
No, well, I'm moving on from fucking Eggs Benedict into actually something serious, but honestly phenomenal from you. That your latest piece you wrote for Pellicle was basically a deep dive into how it got started. And I read it and messaged you just saying like, thanks for writing it, because it's so. From an outside point of view, it's super personal and earnest. What led to you writing that?
The story of that piece is just I don't know. I took those photos and I've been wanting to do something with them for years. Oh God, sorry. I'm just gonna mute that.
Someone check. That's the bellboy.
Yeah,
that is the bellboy.
Yeah. That room service you ordered.
They did order Eggs Benedict, you see?
Yeah.
and the joke has closed.
Oh. So carry on with what you were actually saying, Jonny. Fuck it.
So so I wanted to do some of those photos for ages, and the draft was sitting in like our Squarespace for a long time, and for our first anniversary piece, like which would have been May last year, I'd planned to do like a travel piece about that trip, and I'd kind of written the first draft, and it was very much like, here's a picture of Joss from Garage Project Brewery in New Zealand, and we're having coffee, and it was very nice. And then it kind of just sat there. It didn't really feel appropriate to put out for the most of last year, just because, you know, travel pieces weren't doing very well for us, and I as again didn't consider myself a writer, and especially what I'd written so far I thought was pretty bland. And then Matt was at, oh my God.
They're here.
So they're getting cold.
Yes, so Matthew asked me if, my co-editor slash co-founder, Matt Curtis, asked me if I've got anything ready for our end of year like pieces, because we usually do like a Christmas time one and one for New Year's. And he asked me if I could do that piece, which in his mind, I guess, was still a travel piece. And I'd started going back to therapy a few weeks before, and I hadn't really had time to do any writing, and sat down last week and was in a few weeks ago now, was in a quite an odd place in my mind where I was definitely anxious and obviously had a lot of stuff I wanted to get off my chest, but didn't know how to get it off. And I opened up Google Doc and I deleted all the words I'd written before and just started writing. And I got about 2,000 words in and realized that I was, as an intro to where I was going to get to the part where it was like, and this is the picture of Joss, and this is a picture of a nice tree. And by the time I got to that, I'd already written like 3,000 words, and was like, maybe this is the piece, even though it was not what I literally sat down that morning to write. It just kind of fell out, which is, a cliche of writing. But I mean, I don't know. It's the first thing I've ever written that's not academic. So, it was just a really cathartic, important thing to write. But it kind of felt like I was writing a diary.
I want to know how you felt when you handed that piece over, not just in terms of handing it over to whoever was editing it, but I sort of, when I read it, I read it in the same way I listened to a record, and also having an experience of being on the creative side of that as well. And when you give something away to when you put it out there, it's no longer yours, and you're kind of, you're handing it over to the reader or the listener. How did you feel when that happened? When that, the act of writing it, finishing it, putting it out there. What did you feel about it?
I wrote it in like 2 hours, and then I told Matt that I'd finished it, and it's quite different to what I planned to write, and it's quite long, and that I was going to read it over one more time the next day, and then send it to him. It was really hard. I mean, I trust Matt, and I texted him and specifically told him to not let me chicken out from putting it out there, because I was very, very on edge about putting it out. Like we were going to put it out on the Friday, and then I was like, I don't know if I can deal with like doing it on a Friday. And then stupidly, we put it out last Monday, which is my first day back to work after the new year. And I genuinely didn't expect anyone to read it. Maybe like 6 people. And maybe in my naivety, I mean, if you've read the piece, you might understand why someone might think like that. But yeah.
Yeah, but I get, because it's I've seen that as well. Mainly with like my experience with Scott, my brother, who's a songwriter in the band, and him putting that out there, and everyone else sort of around him knowing that what he was putting out was great, but he would have that same kind of insecurity. And I personally, I didn't read that piece that you did from a point of empathy, because it's not something I've experienced, but it's something I've seen in firsthand in him, and I know, I think it's important to say how brave it was for you to say, even to Matt, to say, don't let me chicken out. Did you feel that all, like, from as soon as you started writing it, you were like, okay, this people are going to read this?
No, I didn't think anyone would genuinely read it. Maybe people who I tagged in it or whatever. But yeah, I had to, even the fact of texting Matt to say, don't let me chicken out, even that was hard to send, because like that was the first step in, like, once I'd sent that text message, then it's even harder for me to backtrack and be like, I don't want to put this out. It's like, you told me to not let you chicken out. I'm like, damn it. So even sending that was hard. No, I wanted it to be not only honest, but I wanted it to be true. It's quite hard whenever you write about yourself to, especially when it's times that might be blurred in your life with mental health and anxiety. There was times that I'd written about where I'd maybe seen it one way, but other people might have seen it another way. So like, I mentioned an incident that happened in Manchester whenever I had a bit of a breakdown. And in my head, I was an asshole to a lot of people that time, which is not a nice thing to have to relive. I still feel a lot of regret to how I treated people that weekend. But at the same time, I didn't want to trigger anyone in that position. So, I made sure that my ex, who I was writing about, specifically had a chance to read it and edit it before going out there, because, for her, it was a horrible experience in a whole different way. And, there's nothing worse than the idea of someone out there who you care about reading something and being like, I can't believe this guy put that out there and is telling the world that's how it happened, whenever that's just not how it happened. Like, yeah. So I wanted it to be true and honest, and even putting those things out there that I'm not particularly proud of. I don't want to give it the idea that I'm a flawless person. I don't, the more, we've got, I don't think of myself as someone in the know, or sorry, who's known per se, but I know that the magazine has a lot of people who read it and respect it, and to put something out there that people who might look at it and go like, oh, Jonny's a brewer, he's got a magazine, like he must have his life together really, really great. Like, why is my life not like as easy as that? Like he's got, a great job, he's making beers that he's happy. And it's just like, no matter who it is, it might seem so great to, I do the same with other people. I look up to people and go like, wow, they must have it so good. They must be so happy. So I don't know, I just wanted to put something out there and let people know that it's okay to not have your life together all the time.
Yeah. But that's it's going to sound weird to sort of preface it, but it's such a super honest like piece you've written, but it's on, essentially it's yours, but it's a food and drink website, really. Like what's the responses been from an audience that are kind of, I guess, expecting another profile of a cider maker or a brewer or like a region? Like how was it? Were there any good, bad responses? Like it seems so odd from an outside viewer looking into a food and drinks website.
Yeah, I think for me, I was surprised. I didn't get any negative responses per se. Maybe they went elsewhere. Maybe people thought that, but I'd say the majority of it's an odd one writing for, or even putting stuff out there for the magazine, because often it can feel a bit like we're only providing content for people in the industry. Like sometimes you put stuff out there and there's a lot of like, the person you're writing about loves it. And then other people like, like you guys or Biram, like, like they read it.
The same 5 voices. Yeah.
Yeah. And it feels a little bit like often the content we put out is for people in the industry, and that's not a bad thing, but we do want to be inclusive. So it is, in that respect, it's a bit of an odd piece in that the main people to get in touch with me were friends of mine or people in the industry who wanted to convey mainly thanks for writing the piece, but also that they'd experienced a lot of the same stuff. And it was surprising the amount. I'm still getting messages to this day. It's only been a week, but I haven't counted. I had to delete social media apps because I was very overwhelmed and just needed a break. But like maybe 50 to 100 people messaging, and the majority of those were people saying that they'd experienced similar things and just didn't know how to talk about it, or that they'd been hiding it. People that I genuinely thought had their shit together. So for me to have friends in the industry who are like, it was like, wow, like I can't believe so many people out there are in the same, and it made me feel a lot more normal, and my, mental health normalized. Not that, it's great that everyone feels sad all the time, but it's nice to know that, that we're in this together. And a lot of people who aren't in the industry, who I know, who perhaps had, like, people who I'd studied chemistry with, like, for example, had messaged and been like, yeah, we've not talked since like 2013, but like I felt the exact same way at university. Like I was lost. I didn't know what I was doing. So whilst it has connections to food and drink, and that ultimately it led to that, but yeah, it could be read by anyone. I have the platform, so I guess I got to use it once.
Yeah.
Now I can retire.
Yeah, that's it. Do you think? I know you spoke in the piece about lockdown and the effect that had on your mental health, and that's obviously a massive, wider issue for the whole country, I think. But there's also an element maybe that with lockdown, it's maybe given people a bit more courage to open up because of the distance. I think Helen had said that with Birham Collective, where she's sort of connected with more people now, or in the past year than she has before, because there's that sort of slight barrier. And is that something you've felt over the past year that you've been able to still connect with people, or have you felt more isolated than connected?
I mean, I kind of touched on it in the article as well, but like I've always been a big fan of the internet and the World Wide Web. Big fan.
love what they're doing.
But I've always been the sort of person who's kept in touch with people I've met over the years. So like, on a weekly basis, I'll text friends that are in, LA or, back in Northern Ireland, or people who are in Bristol or whatever. So I've never really had issues with that, especially through the internet. But for sure, the past year, I've felt maybe more of it coming from the outside to me. So a lot of people who might not normally be the sort of person to text you be like, hey, we don't really know each other, but like, I find, it's like, I think we've got similar stuff in common. Like, let's chat. And I've got, loads of people, I've made three new friends in the past few weeks who've actually like in the most lovely, wholesome way. Like people are like, have said like, oh, would you like to be my friend? Like, and I think it's a funny thing, like when you're, 30 to have people say that. But like, I think people have just got to that stage where it's like, what's the point in like going around this stupid dance of like, people are feeling more lonely. So if they can put a word to it and be like, this person has agreed to be my friend, we don't need to like dance around like, are we like, acquaintances or whatever. Like, I think there's been a lot of people who have felt really lonely and have reached out to each other and made more of a definitive connection. And it's great. Like even like Helen from Birham, I didn't know Helen before lockdown, still never met her and her partner Sophie and Rachel and all that gang down in Cardiff. Like I'd have never met them, but I'd consider them good friends just purely through like I've chatted to both Helen and Rachel today. Like they're sick. Like we chat about nothing to do with cider, nothing to do with beer, wine. We just talk about stuff and
RuPaul's Drag Race,
Twin Peaks.
Sounds like we're reading your messages.
Yeah, I've been watching.
Yeah. Jonny, did you say that this was the first something that you've written that wasn't an academic piece?
Yes.
When that's quite amazing. Just full stop to smash something out like that. That obviously comes from a completely different place and for a completely different purpose. Do you think sort of doing this kind of writing, because obviously you're a photographer as well, but this sort of form of communication is something you want to do a bit more of?
Yes, for sure. I don't know what, and I don't want to rehash the same old thing. I don't want to get carried away and be like, the one-hit wonder who wrote an article once. I don't want to convince myself that like it could just be beginner's luck that I wrote an article that people think is well written. But I think we people from the entire island of Ireland like to think that we are very good storytellers. I've always enjoyed telling a story well. In the pub or in to people in person, but I've never written it down because I felt that whenever one has to write, that the language should be changed to become more. I mean, if I was to edit my own writing for this piece like I would other people's, I'd be like, this is a very informal way of writing. But I realized that I don't have to write like I'm Matt Curtis or Adrian Taylor-Jones. Like I thought that I had to write in their style, which is actually the worst way that I think I could write. Sorry, that sounded bad.
Don't want to do their shit way.
That Adrian Tierney Jones beer right at the ear. What does he know? Oh,
Oh God. Well, it's a Pellicle article that we love, and Pellicle's again, it's a food and drinks website that's definitely captured our hearts. But going to drinks, you're a brewer first, but can you just tell us about your journey in beer and then how you found cider?
So beer, I moved to Edinburgh in 2008. Two of the people in this chat are mentioned in this story. The first is unrelated, but in my piece, I mentioned that whenever I moved to Edinburgh, and I looked at a gig listings in a window, and I was like, okay, finally, I'm somewhere where I want to be. But it was actually a Frightened Rabbit gig that I was trying to go to. So now it's kind of very odd and tangential that we're back here. But the first cider that I really got into was from Martyn, who sold me it at Clapton Craft in Finsbury Park. I was working as a brewer at Beavertown at the time. And yeah, I think after about a year or so of brewing every day, I was looking to try something new. And I think what I learned from this podcast, a classic technique of Martyn's is if people come in and ask for what beers are good, he'll be like, this cider's really good.
But that's with you as well. It's one where, at the time, Tempest project that you were running up for Beavertown was a wild fermentation brewery, and the cider I think it was Gold Rush number 4 or 5, but the yeast character component of that, and it's 2 years in oak before it's released, I believe. But those kind of things that if that was in a beer, you'd be geeking out over. But it was £3.20 at the time, and it's just fucking mind-boggling that I think. And I think that the more people I've talked to about cider, and the more the years have gone on, it's become that people don't really gravitate towards one drink or the other. They gravitate towards well-fermented products where there's an understanding and you kind of respect it. So I'm glad that it was one that I think we've brought up on this podcast more than any other fucking drink, because it is a
guy owes us a load of commission.
Yeah, mate, does he owes a few cases of raw or something.
I think with Tom again, with the inclusion of Oliver's at Beavertown's first extravaganza in 2017 was a huge one for me, because I'd obviously gone from enjoying that Oliver's cider and was but whenever I remember going straight to their stall, and it was Tom and the first time I met him and the first time I met Felix, and I tried everything there, and I was like, why am I the only person at this stall? I mean, you could directly across the room was, I think, the Omni Polo or Other Half or something crazy, but there was a massive queue. And I was just standing there drinking the best cider in the world, being this is mind-boggling that people who appreciate drink, they're in the room of people who appreciate flavor, and yet no one's interested. And it's the same that the next year we got some natural wines and no one was interested. But I mean, that's kind of why we start. Well, one of the main reasons, apart from my own journey, that we started Pellicle, and we would have these discussions with between brewers and cider make. Well, we didn't really know many cider makers, but cider fans and beer fans in London, and be why is it that we in a room are able to appreciate as brewers this wine or this cider, but everyone else is oh, I'm a beer drinker, sorry, I don't drink cider. Given
that you've obviously got this personal interest in natural wines as well as your background, as a technical brewer, when it comes to seeking out ciders, tasting ciders, drinking ciders, do you come to it with more of a beer mindset or a wine mindset in terms of how it's made and the flavors that you're getting, or are you just revering it and understanding it just exactly for what it is? How do you approach these drinks?
That's a good question. I think my my appreciation and my understanding of things has changed quite a bit over the past few years. Like, I definitely, when I got into beer, by the time I got to like 2012, it was like, give me the craziest thing you've got. Like, I want to try these Brewdog, like stupid 50% beers. And then when I got into mixed fermentation beer, it was like, I was like so excited that people making crazy beers. They're aged in different barrels with different fruits. And then now I pretty much drink lager, like Pilsner, pretty much exclusively. Same with natural wine. When I first got into it, it was like, oh, this thing's crazy. It's messed up. It's so funky. And now I really despise a lot of the off flavors I would have loved originally. And I think it's the same with cider. Like now, it's with all this same drink. Now I've found balance is like the most important thing. So like balance, doing things properly in terms of whatever you want to define as natural or raw, but not ignoring benefits of small amounts of technology that might make a huge difference to the end product. So like when I get a natural wine and I buy it for myself at home and I pour one glass and it's amazing, and then 20 minutes later the whole bottle I have to pour down the sink because it's full of mouse or THP. Like, I can't drink that. That to me is someone who became so obsessed with the no sulfur thing that they couldn't even put 5 milligrams or 10 milligrams of sulfur at bottling that you wouldn't detect. It would, okay, your ethos would be affected, but basically, if that was my first natural wine, that's probably my last natural wine. So yeah, I think I appreciate when people understand, and respect the fruit and respect the farming and the soil and everything, and then also appreciate that technology is not a bad thing, and that small discoveries that were made that sulfur is a good thing at producing, at stopping antimicrobial and oxidation, that a little tiny bit of that could affect people enjoying your product a lot more. It's the same with brewing and people's opinions about finings, even though you can get vegan finings now. It's even though like the argument against finings used to be it was fish guts. That was a huge thing. And now it's not fish guts. People's argument is that it's for some reason not craft.
If you see me ignoring you slightly, anybody, it's because I'm actually writing down, because I'm writing my second book, Modern British Cider by Gabe Cook, coming out later this year.
It is. Oh, Johnny's left. That's fine.
Wisely. And part of the exploration is around whether it's around the modernity aspect or around, contemporary drinks and this. It's certainly what I perceive in beer and in parts of wine and in parts of cider, that actually it's the lowest tech possible equates to the best or the highest skilled or the most valued, and trying to tease that apart and frankly disagreeing with it, which is why I really appreciated sort of what you were saying there. It's quite interesting. And that was just to say thank you. And the second point was in your article.
There's going to be about 4 points here, by the way, Johnny.
Don't worry, Johnny. Just
to let you
pour
know,
yourself a big glass.
We're about a quarter of the way through this yes or no question.
Yeah, I was going to say £5 on this being yes or no. Go on.
£5. I'll give you fucking 10 to 1 on that.
Well, I will take them. They're being most horrible to me, Johnny, but not without good reason. My question actually is any kind of cider making going to appear on your radar, or some co-fermentations, or sort of playfulness with apples at all? Is it something that takes your fancy?
Yeah, so New Barns Brewery, the brewery where I brew it, and is named so because of New Barns Farm, which is Emma, one of the co-founders with Gordon, Emma's family farm, her granddad's farm, called New Barns, which is up in Kirriemuir, which is in Angus. So on the farm is where we actually grow some barley, which we're going to get malted and use in a beer in a few months. We've got it's mainly a cattle farm, so all the spent grain gets picked up by Emma's Uncle Bill every week, and then goes back to the farm. And the third thing is that there are loads of apples and damsons and stuff up there, and we plan to put tanks or maybe a small brewery up one day up at the farm to do mixed fermentation stuff. And yeah, with the plan being to try them, because like most of the stuff we make with the brewery is trying to keep it as local as possible. So like using local barley, local oats, local wheat, and hops from the UK. So with the farm brewed stuff, we would definitely use malt that has been malted from barley and wheat on the farm, and then aged on, probably without pitching any yeast, on apples or fruit from the farm. So yeah, it'll be like 100% farm.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I can already hear Martyn's response to that when he drinks it.
Oh, God. Well, that sounds like a fuckload of work for this year, like already from that list. But looking back on 2020 and obviously how just ridiculous it was, and how this year's shaping up, what are your hopes as a brewer and as a valued voice in the drinks community with Pellicle, for your hopes for this year?
I think for me personally, we're starting to see from the readers, we're starting to see our cider content. I mean, Matt, whenever he's on the show, will give you more numbers because he's probably, looked them up and done some research. But yeah, he's our cider guy. And I think the more and more content we put out, the more people have latched onto it. And we're starting to see the numbers for those pieces go up. I mean, in an ideal world, we'd be, a breakdown of food, beer, cider, wine, 25%, but that's just not how it is. We are both known respectively for being in the beer world. So, me as a brewer and Matt as a beer writer for a long time. So most of the people in our circle of influence and who reads are going to be beer people. So the main thing there is trying to get those beer people to do what we were talking about earlier, which is, if Pellicle was the Beavertown Extravaganza 2017, we want some of those people who are reading our magazine to move over from the other half brewing circle to maybe try a cider article and see how that makes them feel. And maybe next time they're at the shop, they might be like, oh, I've heard of Ross and Y because I was scrolling through Pellicle because I read an article on a brewery I like or a winery I liked, whatever. And maybe it's not, oh, wow, it's actually very cheap compared to my mixed ferm beers in 750ml bottles. I'll give it a go. I think it actually is, once people are ready to make that jump across into cider from mixed ferm beers, it's quite an easy jump because of the low barrier to entry for good quality products. I mean, if I decided that I really wanted to get into champagne, it's quite a difficult market to.
Jonny, thank you so much for taking the time to be joining us here at the Neutral Cider Hotel. We hope that the room service, we hope the Eggs Benedicts were good in the end. We hope that they were sufficiently well, not having congealed by now, and that they match well with a nice wild fermented cider. We all sincerely appreciate your time with us at the hotel, and also again for the honesty and the articulateness of your article has really sort of touched in over all of us, and it's something that is going to resonate with us for a wee bit. So thank you very much for doing that, and keep writing. It's obviously something that you're pretty good at. So for anybody who wants to, who hasn't had the opportunity to read Pellicle yet, what's the website? What's the deets?
It's www.pelliclemag.com. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at Pellicle Jonny. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, you can tell he surfs the web. There's a www there.
He's a www.
HTTP.
Yes.
//
Yes, Jonny.
Yeah, dude. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, really appreciate it. And good luck with the year ahead. And we're looking forward to lots more cider articles, maybe even a cider article about Kevin Mincher and some Perry at some stage in the future. Quite possibly. I'm working with Matt on that, don't worry. And lots more to come too. So, Jonny, from all at the hotel, cheers, mate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. Cheers.
Okay, so now here at the Neutral Cider Hotel, it's time for our cider tasting of the week. And we're going to be tasting a cider that is, I suppose it's my recommendation, really. It's from a cider maker that I extolled the virtues of at the end of last year. It's Bushel+Peck, who are a small but up-and-coming Gloucestershire producer who make ciders from old orchards and also from apples in gardens where the fruit is kind of going to waste as well. They've been around for just only a handful of years and have been under the 7,000 litre barrier in the UK. If you make less than 7,000 litres, then you don't have to pay any duty, although that is being reviewed at the moment, so that might all change. There'll be a fun episode in the future for everyone. But they've broken through and they're growing. They are growing and they're getting bigger, and they've sort of, up until now, they've produced a range of ciders that sit in a sort of range of flavor profiles, so fresh and crisp and sort of smooth and rich and deep and mellow. And they've this year sort of released over the last sort of 12 months a number of more bespoke and small batch and single variety and kind of wild ferment. And so that's what we're tasting tonight. It is going to be a single variety Dabinette. Let's get going, shall we?
My favourite apple. Ooh. First off, look at that freshness cork there. Little cap thing that's in, I've got a crown cap, but there's a whole fucking tube blocking any oxygen getting in there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm not sure if it's that or technically these are actually sort of crown caps that are used in method traditionnel cider making. It's like the bidule. It's where you actually, isn't that what you catch the yeast in? Or have I made that up? I'm not quite sure. There's...
So, what, pre-disgorge?
Pre-disgorging, yeah.
Right, okay.
But yeah, so for everybody's benefit at home, it's what do we reckon? A sort of almost pale amber. It's hazy. It's quite hazy. It's single variety Dabinette. It's been bottle conditioned. What's one of the interesting things is that there's a full on label which has been elastic banded, I think that is the term, onto the bottle with just huge amounts of information, which is really quite nice in a way. Including like the full progress of fermentation with specific gravity at pressing and all the way through. It started at 1.052 degrees of specific gravity. That's the measure of the density as a proxy for the sugar content. And what we can tell is that it fermented bone dry over the course of, to be fair, it took 9 months to ferment entirely to dryness, and it sits at, I think it's 7.5% alcohol. And they've placed it into bottle with a touch of extra sugar, and it's undergone a secondary bottle conditioning. So it's not a pet nat. It hasn't undergone all of its fermentation and finishing off the primary in the bottle. It's undergone a slight second, but it's bone dry, and it doesn't present like that to me. I think they definitely get a sort of a juiciness and a softness and richness. It's quite bold. It's earthy. What do you boys think? Before I just launch into one of my things.
Yeah, it doesn't. I'd agree. It doesn't present like a bone dry. There's a lot of juice there. What kind of a pineapple? So that kind of sweetness, but
yeah, I think it's a good shout.
That sweetness, but with a little bit of tartness as well. I mean, on the nose, I was getting that kind of that banana foam sweet.
Yeah.
Which I wouldn't choose to eat at a pick and mix.
So there we have it, guys. That's a drink for 1 week.
Oh, hey.
Out of interest.
Wouldn't eat that in a pick and mix.
What was your favourite pick and mix as a child? Or an adult even?
Well, I guess kind of changed as an adult because now it's getting vegan pick and mix is kind of only okay.
Oh yeah, sorry, God, I've delved down a hole I didn't want to.
As a child, milk bottles all the way. Milk bottles.
Good shout.
I fucking love the milk bottle, sweetie. What about you? What was yours?
Oh, milk bottle, definitely a good shout. Also, really like the
same as you.
The cherry, all right. They like the cherry, the double cherry type thing. Anyway,
that's
sorry,
good.
we are talking. This is the neutral cider hotel rather than the neutral confectionery hotel.
It's all right. I won't say mine. You two get yours. It's fine.
Well, that's normally what would happen is I pass on to Gabe. Gabe passes on to Martyn, but yeah, he's not interested.
He just went okay, and I'm sick of hearing myself speak. No, as a kid, for me, it wasn't necessarily like the pick and mix full rack, but a local shop down the road from me, they had like the jars of sweets behind the counter, and lemon bonbons I could eat just all day. And even when it's overly powdery. Overly powdery? Overly powdery. Even when there's overly powdery. But even when it's overly powdery, I'm like, I could like addict, just plow lemon bonbon.
Lemon bonbons from a glass jar.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's from a Roald Dahl. From a Roald Dahl book or something like that. It's
remember Millions as well.
Brilliant.
I feel like we're talking about everything.
I didn't bringing it back to the cider at hand. So Dabinet is a variety that as far as classic English bittersweet cider apple varieties, West Country kind of apples is up there with probably Yarlington Mill, maybe Kingston Black is the most prominent of those presented as a single variety. They're generally one of the sort of classic paramount things about Dabinet is this kind of orange juice character, which often comes through. I'm not sure whether it presents itself quite as orange juice. I think Grant's right. It's almost more slightly sort of pineapple-y. There is definitely presents that as some kind of sweetness, but I don't think it is sweet. But there is a real texture to this. There's a little bit
super syrupy, isn't it?
I don't know. It's not even quite kind of clove spiciness. Maybe it's even like peppery. I'm not quite sure. But I'm finding it really satisfying. It's filling every single recess within my mouth in the most pleasant way. And it is chewy. It is chewy. It is bold. It's one of those that definitely takes a few sips in order for it to sort of adjust to the mouth.
Definitely, yeah.
But I really like it, and if this had a Ross on Y or Tom Oliver label on, I don't think that it would be. I think it's worthy in terms of the construct of being sort of within that company, and it would be celebrated for being another great output from one of those celebrated producers. So I think that it's a really good exploration into what Gloucestershire Dabinet apples can provide.
Yeah, it's definitely one for me. Like what you were saying, like cloves, peppery, but it's got that like spiced. Sounds silly because we've just come out of it with like mulled cider and that, but it's those little like spicy, sharp notes. But it's not like bold acidic or anything. It's like definitely grounded in like an earthy note. And but the apples for me, it smells like when you're milling apples. Like it's so like flesh, juice, everything.
Yeah.
And then like you're saying, that texture, it drinks like a sweet 4% without being overly sickly. It's got like this real nice sort of smoothness to it. But then it's not flabby. The acidity is like light and bright. It's just a really good drinking. It's really good drinking cider.
So clean.
Yeah.
For like 7.5% Dabinet.
Is that what it is? Fucking yeah. I was 4 or 5.
That's
Well
that's
done.
when you said that I had to look at the label. I was like, yeah, because it definitely tastes like that, and 7.5, and yeah, it's just everything's it's super well balanced. I don't know. The nose for me is it's giving off a lot more now, actually.
I was like, I've been quiet for a long while on it. Listeners at home, do not be worried. I do have a lot to say. Don't worry. But it like with a lot of these, and Dabnet is my favorite variety when it's done and it's really present. And I think it works really well in blends when you've got sweetness to sort of amplify that kind of tangerine quality.
Mm-hmm.
But this has like, it's quite gentle on the nose comparatively to what I was expecting. So I was like trying to hunt for it, but it just is like, it's like when you're on pressing day and you've got the whole environment in the air and that just, it's like zesty spritzes everywhere of just apple juice. It's got like that kind of brightness, but then the flavor is all like just smooth sailing. I'm genuinely surprised at how how they've taken it this way, because I would never have expected to drink that from that bottle. And like you say, if that was in a white label with Tom Oliver Fine Cider, I would have gone, it's a really delicate, easy entry one from Tom. But like, it really caught me off guard. Well done.
Yeah, it's a great example of why I think that David Lindgren is the guy's name, and he's quite a self-effacing guy, and he'll say that he's just sort of tinkering and playing away, but genuinely he sort of produced a range of about half a dozen different sort of small batch 750 mils. Oh dear, it's all gone a bit cidery. At the Goodwin Sharman residence,
Martyn's.
I'll keep talking whilst he's sorting himself out. Yeah, this is sort of emblematic of why I think that it's making some really quite interesting ciders with a lot of complexity and fun and playfulness. Some of them didn't work for me. There was a single variety Tremlets bitter that went down a route that I didn't kind of particularly enjoy, but you're not going to get every single thing right, and that's part, especially when you're doing these wild ferments. And so to have that playfulness and that expression, it was a really cool thing. I really enjoyed.
Yeah, that to going wild ferment, because what I've had from Bushel+Peck before is they're I think 500 ml bottles where they have a Perry and they have a sort of tannic. I don't know what they're called, rich and mellow, and I should really have looked it up.
It's rich and mellow, smooth and subtle, slow and easy, and fresh and crisp.
Yeah. So and they're very much like pour it out, drink it, don't think too much about it. And to go from that to a wild fermented single variety and have no, to my taste, nothing on the verge of any faults or anything is great to be able to do that, and not even just to have no faults, but to make something that's, I think you could present to most people and say, here, try this as a premium style cider.
Here, try this and guess the ABV.
Right, come back to me in an hour. And
you guessed wrong, and I knocked my microphone over, but that's absolutely fine. Well,
do you know what happened? I don't care if this stays in or not. So I've been drinking a Pilton Queen of the Brew, which is a 100% quince keeved drink.
Beautiful.
Now, these are unlabeled. They were on the pallet. So this clear glass was on the floor. So I just put the whole bottle on top of this because I didn't see it, and it stopped and just spilled everywhere. So there's just cider all over the floor. But then to get that, I then pulled everything. So gonna have to clean up.
Oh, bless.
I've got a mop you could probably borrow.
It's been used many times by Grant.
I've used it in the hotel loads of times.
Yeah.
What's funny with it, like, and it's with a lot of these ciders, they do keep changing, and like it's not that it's a fault, but it did need to open up a bit. So if you do get this, definitely let it breathe for a moment. But it's changing even now, and it's got a real rooty, earthy, like barky note coming off of it, which. I almost can't place everything I'm smelling. Usually I go, oh, I know what this is. This one I'm going,
it's a bit of leatheriness that, or kind of sweat you know, that kind of musty smell that I think is, you know, it's great. It's great on the nose, because I feel like it takes you to, you know, the farm, or takes you to the orchard, and then when you get it on the palate, it's so juicy and so fruity. It's for a Dabinet, it's great.
Again, like with a lot of those ciders, like I definitely have like a penchant for them, where they have that leathery, savory note, and it's almost that like umami. Like the ferments definitely a bit more pronounced, so it's not a clean, delicate thing. You've got that like spice, leather, and I mean, it's like you say, Grant, it's got all those, but I would never say this is like a savory cider. Like it doesn't have that characteristic where I'm like, oh, it's a 7% dry, leathery, spicy cider. This is like, no, it's wearing those clothes, but it's like just a fun party thing. It's really weird.
It's not on the palate for me, the leather and the spice, you know, it's in the nose, and that when you give that to someone that's maybe, you know, hasn't tried as many ciders as we have, they might not sniff it, and they just taste it and be like, shit, that tastes great, you know? And I think this is a great cider that you can, one of those ones that you can dissect and you can sit and, you know, take all its parts and discuss them as we are, but also you could just sit and pour a glass and have a drink.
Or put it on the floor like I have by accident.
Or pour on the floor.
One thing, it almost plays completely backwards to the drinks that I have like that, where like usually a lot of these ciders, they have like real big floral citrusy noses, like lots of other fruit on them. Foxwell does this where it's like a lot of bright fruit, and then it's like acid, and it's like harsh dry, and you've got those kind of savory notes, and especially like if you're doing a wild ferment with them, you get this kind of leathery, rich, dark umami kind of thing. Whereas this is the opposite, where it smells a bit like that and it's got those characters, but then it's like super juicy soft, which like I've not had it this way around. So I'm like, again, I just need to preface it of like, I don't actually know what I'm doing.
Because I've been throughout this recording, I've been drinking Ross-on-Wye Premium Dabinet Single Variety, which I feel and think is a great representation of Dabinet, but it's totally different from this.
Amazing, isn't it?
Is the kind of Ross-on-Wye, and no less or more enjoyable, just so different. Just that.
For reference, what was the Ross-on-Wye like in like just a couple of words, like just to compare, so people know the kind of the angle you're getting at?
Less juice, less fruit, more of the kind of the leatheriness and the spice, more of that, and less of the juiciness and the unctuousness that this one has.
I wonder, the only clue potentially coming out here is because of the great deal of sort of notes that are being written on the back of this label. It's almost like a bit of marketing card. It's great to have this amount of information associated with it. Is that basically it was quite a cold winter in the barn. I went to visit David just about a year ago, and it quite literally was freezing in this barn, and so this chart of the dropping of the gravity, the conversion of the sugars into alcohol, shows that basically between like the 1st of January and the 1st of and sort of the 12th of March, it only converted like a portion of its sugar, and then once because we had quite a warm spring, didn't we? It came with a bang last year, and so it warmed up quite quickly, and it finished off its fermentation a lot more quickly in the spring. So I wonder whether different kinds of like malolactic flora and other kinds of things came into play and worked on it in conjunction with that alcoholic fermentation to help enhance some of that kind of juicy character, rather than focusing on some of the really bigger, bolder, spicy leather that we were kind of talking about, that is often commonplace associated with Dabinet, but also sometimes with a juicy character, where this is just juice max, I think is the official line. So
it's got that kind of the same texture for me as Hazy Ways Part 1 from Little Pomona, which was like super, and their Ceci Bonbon as well, which was like their, it was their kind of glace demijohn kind of rolling
that's a deep cut.
Yeah, but again, you'll never try that if you didn't try it. So fuck you.
I know, Martyn. All right, brilliant.
But but the thing is with those, they've gone out of their way for a specific technique to make this super soft thing. So to almost know it's made like, oh, this is the wild way by these guys. It's like, it's just so interesting that it's just really caught off guard. Also, I didn't know that the card had text on the back. So as soon as you said, "Oh, there's loads on the back," I was like, "Here we are."
Well, that's one thing that if we do our pros and cons, I would say, a massive pro for me is the amount of information you get, and you might, as someone who's not. I mean, even for me, I'll be honest, even the specific gravity measurements mean very little to me in terms of being able to look at that and say how different that is from another cider. Gabe, you can do that straight away and say, okay, well, you just said it, in spring it did this and that. For me, first and final specific gravity are things that make sense, but looking at it throughout doesn't make any sense to me. But that's great that they've got that on there for
I think this was David's sort of first attempt at this limited edition range, and his approach was to go for the full on, all out, as much information, almost information kind of overload. And fair play, like better to have far too much information of a completely nerdy nature than nothing at all. And you're right, for a lot of people, it will be too much. And just to confirm, when we talk about gravity, we are talking about the density of the liquid, which pertains to the amount of sugar in there, and it's that which gets converted into alcohol by yeast, whether it be a wild yeast, as in this case, or an inoculated yeast.
Blah.
That's it. There's the disgusted Martyn.
But that was not for me. That was not. It wasn't a con. It was a pro as to how much information is on the label. It's insane.
But also linking with that, Grant, because it's a lot of info, and you don't have to read it if you don't want to, but it's nice for us to have it there. But also a lot of sort of small cider makers now, looking at the market and what beer's done to it, you get a lot of the sort of small cider makers where they then go, we're doing a wild range, so let's do a completely wild thing. This branding is super clean and informative, but doesn't feel like it's overloaded on the page. So when you look at the bottle, in the case that he gave, it's a little joy to look at, like super clean, well presented, little bow around it kind of thing, and the elastic band. I know a couple of American cider makers have done that as well, where it's just like to avoid the glue. But it just looks, the whole package looks great.
Definitely. Well, then you've got a blank, bottle that you can maybe reuse to fill with your own cider that you've made or whatever. I think it's a great way to present a cider, and also to give people the information that they might or might not want.
That's it.
So
there we go.
Any praise from you, Gabe?
Oh, I think it's.
Or are you saying the same thing?
No. I think it's a demonstration that the wild fermentation cider doesn't have to be extreme in its flavor profile, and that actually it can be quite gentle and inviting. And I think that's the but without it not being simplistic. There is complexity there, but there is a real accessibility to it. I think that's the game of this cider.
Before we go on to the cons, mine now, I've just put my nose in it and I've named it, for me, that's like a white burgundy right now, where I was just like, it's somehow evolved a little bit more. And I'm like, oh, okay, oh, I know that one now. So just before we go on to the cons, it's evolved again and it's lovely. So
it is. It's changing. It's changing this is one that, again, I would, would be great to put in a decanter, let it breathe for a little while. I think Dabinette, a lot of bittersweet apples, certainly single varieties that aren't balanced out with other apples, to put them in a decanter and let it breathe for a little while. Let that, I don't know, maybe the kind of booziness or the sweat or the leather that a lot of people might be turned off by, let that cool off a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. Letting it breathe for a little while, like you would a red wine.
Yeah. So is that like I guess that kind of links into a con in the politest way, because it's like, just heed the warning that this isn't necessarily ready to go as soon as you open the cap. But that's as gentle as a con as I think we could give on the show. Wait a minute. No, I'm cutting you off there. It links back to our fucking advert chat. Good things come to those who wait. That's why.
Oh, goodness.
Well said, Martyn. Nailed it.
Top of the show there, Gabe.
Top of the show.
Tick tock, tick tock. That was it, right? Or am I just
it
from a...
You're just going on TikTok? No, there we go. That's absolutely right. I think the cider, it lives up to what it presents itself as, which is as a single variety. It's Dabinette. It's wild ferment. It tells you everything about it. It is honest. It is upfront. It is accessible. There is a lot of bold character that for somebody who is just used to drinking supremely sort of clean and straight up ciders might struggle a touch at first, but this is precisely, I think, where both of you guys are really accurate in terms of giving it the opportunity just to open up and breathe a little bit, and to let some of the potentially more sort of slightly challenging characters just to mellow and to get into it. But if nothing else, it's just great to see relatively new cider makers coming into the scene and making really, really fun and interesting ciders. So good on you, Bushel+Peck. If you want to try this cider or investigate any more of the Bushel+Peck range, you need to go to Bushel+Peck. That's BUSHELPECK.co.uk, and you can learn all about them. He's a really good guy, and I know for a fact that he has gone last harvest over to Dimmock, the mighty Dimmock, my home village, featuring in Ciderology by Gabe Cook, available now. Thank you very much. And he has picked an avenue of Perry pear trees that is, it was 250 years old, basically. And it leads down to a property called Boyce Court, which I made a Perry from there one year, and it was average. But hopefully he will make something completely better. It's a mix of thorn and barley.
What did yours smell like?
Well, it wasn't the one that smelled of sausages. It was more vinegary, probably. No, actually, I think that was
no.
right.
No. I think you're doing yourself a disservice. That was the thorn Perry that you said was the best thing you ever made, wasn't it?
Well, not actually that. Not those trees. That was from the tree on my granny's farm.
Okay, good.
About 500 meters away.
I thought you were just doing the old like, oh, it's vinegar, tee, and it's like, no, dude, if you're proud, be really proud.
No, I don't do that. I'm far too arrogant for that. Don't you worry. I'll put it out there. So. I'm horrible.
God. With this though, with this as a drink, I guess the only thing to add would be that if you were going to give it to anyone, if I was to give it to someone, I think I'd actually give it to some of the, like Jonny said, like some of the beer guys that have come over to it. Probably had a bottle or two of Ross on Y, and they're getting used to like wild fermentation. They know what it is in beer, or you might know what it is in wine, but this is definitely on the kind of funkier side, but it's not faulty. It's got that clean character. So I would give this happily to people that are kind of well on their journey and just trying to experiment with the drink of cider rather than beer or wine.
There we go. Go check out everyone. This is the Dabanet from Bushel+Peck. And finally, at the Neutral Cider Hotel to wrap up our amazing session, it is the listeners' questions. Of course, that time once again. Martyn, what are the people asking us here at the hotel?
So I've got technically 2 questions here from Batch Cider on Instagram. They ask, is it just Scott shaving during lockdown? And then they also ask, also, how to improve, understand / describing what you're actually tasting. So I think listeners at home, you can't see, but Grant is rocking a fucking amazing tash right now. I have a fairly good haircut that accentuates my hairline, and Gabe has just a broken fucking finger that we've not addressed.
Look at that.
No, we haven't addressed the finger, have we?
So shall we quickly say what?
Did you cut it shaving?
Well, obviously not, because I'm still fuzzy. Yeah.
Not up there, mate.
No. Finger.
Finger.
I just like to say finger.
Was that you calling your finger?
No, finger.
All the fingers in the bed.
Hither. If you've got something to say to the class, say it in front of everyone.
It was an unfortunate incident with my girlfriend wielding a tomato knife, as it happened. And
Right, hold on.
yes,
What? So, am I the only person who doesn't have a knife specifically for tomatoes?
the tomato knife is going to change your world.
Is this a manner thing, or
No,
am I
no,
just?
this is a chef thing. Apparently, it's basically a small serrated knife. It's like a small bread knife, and it cuts everything. It cuts tomatoes. It cuts through bread. It also cuts through several layers of your epidermis as well, as it happens. But
You can pick yours up from the Neutral Cider Hotel website /GML. We put the great in serrated knives, tomato knives from Neutral Cider Hotel. Cut your finger, you motherfucker.
You're like one of those people in Debenhams when you're walking through like a concession trying to sell a fucking tomato knife, and everyone's like, well, I can actually just buy a knife that cuts tomatoes and lemons, and but it does it all. Doesn't have tomato before its main name.
I could just imagine it like a little trailer, like, are you sick and tired of cutting your veg? And it's like, you need the tomato knife. So tell us what your partner did to lacerate you.
we were endeavouring to take off a crappy old
The finger.
Accidentally. We were chopping up an old badminton net from the summer.
You are so fucking
Hold
posh.
on.
Fuck
Right.
off.
So hold on. Right. You were cutting a badminton net with a tomato knife.
Well, you know, when
Fuck off.
well, I haven't got a badminton knife.
Who are you? On a tomato net. What the fuck? Honestly, I've never heard anything like that in my life.
Well,
People,
it is the truth.
people are struggling to feed themselves, Gabe, and you're cutting badminton nets with tomato knives. I am
It's a new year.
sickened.
It's a new year. It's a new me. I'm cutting my badminton net with a tomato knife. You fucking...
That is honestly, I could not have made that better if I spent a year trying to write that single line. That
You're
is
red as a tomato. Go on. Finish it.
It's. I mean, obviously, I haven't made it up. This is the truth. And
Oh, God.
well, it is the joyousness, isn't it, of stories like this that one does need to pay a visit. And thank you to our fantastic NHS for saving lives and for applying an iodine strip to a turnip who did accidentally have his finger sliced by a tomato knife. Although, fortunately, it didn't cut through any nerve bundles, so I can still flip you the bird quite happily. So,
what a hoot.
so yeah, there we go. Anyway, on to the second part of the listener question is, how do you actually cut a badminton net? Is don't use a tomato knife. Use a pair of scissors. That is probably a better set of implements.
It's essentially two tomato knives put together with a safe handle, isn't it? Really,
it is a much safer utilization of the tomato. Take the mickey all you want, and I'm very happy to do so. But you need to get tomato knives in your life. They will change it.
No,
they will.
Don't fucking sell me. Don't sell me your one-armed scissor, son. Fuck off.
Actually, after having nearly, not being too dramatic, I didn't actually lose the digit, but having chopped it off, I did relook at the badminton net, and I could have just undone a small bow, and that would have had the same effect.
That seems way more in character for you. Oh, do hither. I will untie this bow for my badminton net. And you went, no, honey, pass me the tomato knife.
Well, no, it was Jules who was wielding the knife, not me. So, anyway.
I think we best step away from this before we stumble into something much deeper and intended.
The actual cider question.
So this was a question that we were going to ask, but on an earlier episode, Batch Cider, but we thought it deserved its a proper expansion on rather than just a quick flippant response. And I feel like we've sabotaged ourselves with probably the most amazing story. So clearing that away from your mind, honestly, I nearly threw up coughing then. But how to improve, understand / describing what you're actually tasting. Gabe, you've done more of it than both of us seriously. So how do you approach the drink, and how can you kind of teach some of the listeners at home how you drink cider?
Yeah, it's so classically try and break it down to a 3-stage process, which I'm sure is no different for wine or beer, which is undertaking an assessment of how it looks, how it smells, and then how it tastes, to build up an entire kind of picture. So its color, its carbonation, its clarity, and then what kind of aromatics do you get, their intensity, whether they actually smell or relate to something that you already kind of know. How does it make you feel? Do you like it or not like it? You can have some subjectivity as well as trying to be objective and just sort of describe and analyze as well. I totally understand that a lot of people, myself included, when I first started sort of tasting and trying to go through this process, people have got perfectly good palates, but then trying to attribute a word or name of something that pre-exists, like bananas, let's say, you can taste it and go, I know that it tastes like something that I know, but then to try to link that to the banana can be a difficult thing to do. And dare I say, a little bit of it is practice, like just drink quite a bit, and just have a go every time at trying to that repetition, doing that with people who are also interested, your friends and your peers and your contemporaries. And you'd be amazed actually that how between you and that you can pick them out. And then it's just about that confidence. Don't feel, if you think it smells of, I don't know,
jacket potato.
But if you think it smells of a jacket potato, then say that it smells of a jacket potato, because I bet that somebody else thinks it smells of a jacket potato too. There'll be somebody else who won't get that at all, but that everybody does have a different profile of sort of sensory approach. And that's part of the fun. That's really, really important, because if we, if everything was able to just be analyzed in a computer, then that would make things really, really boring, and we wouldn't have a podcast to do, and we wouldn't have any tasting sessions. It's part of the joy is that everybody interprets these drinks in slightly different ways, that these sensory characters, you cannot measure them with a computer. There are some things you can, the alcohol, the amount of acidity, etc., but that's not how it actually feels or how it tastes or how it smells. So keep practicing, be brave, say what you think, and hang out with people who drink lots too. So that's my approach.
One specific thing I did was to go on to Ross on Y website and order a bunch of single variety ciders. And they have, if you've listened to previous episodes, the one that we did with Albert from Ross and Y, you'll know they have a massive, massive range of single varieties, more than probably anyone else produces in the world. I found that was a good way of just getting the basics of, and it's not even just that so that you can say, oh, I now know what Bulmer's Norman tastes like, or I now know what Foxwell tastes like specifically, but having single varieties, and they're in 500ml bottles as well, which is another thing that's helpful if you're going through it in that way, is that you're not open 750ml bottle having to share it. I find that really helpful to get my head around what the different flavour profiles are, and not necessarily using anyone else's words or anyone else's tasting experiences but my own. It's not you're not spending a massive amount on lots of 750ml bottles. You know, you're getting a good selection of 500ml well-made ciders, and that was something that I continue to do that as well. I order from Ross and Y frequently to and get those single varieties to enhance my knowledge and experience continually.
The thing I'll say that I I kind of had a problem with it in beer, where a lot of hops have flavor attributes attributed to them from the start, and a lot of brewers lean on them, so they'll have labels printed before the product was ready. And
is that right?
Yeah, in the early days, like when I was starting to drink in, it was a lot of like so mosaic hops, blueberries, loads of blueberries, and I didn't have one that I thought, oh, that smells exactly like blueberries. And maybe I was naive, but I was tasting other stuff in other things and smelling it. So it just always rung kind of like there was a little bit of disingenuous kind of marketing from the get-go. And I think a lot of people can get that with cider. I mean, we tried the Foxwell and we came to it with an expectation of what Foxwell is. And it's an informed expectation because we've had it in lots of other stuff, but just don't take the words of it. And like Grant and Gabe have said, like just be honest with yourself, but and what you taste, just keep putting it out there, and you'll eventually find your own lexicon and you'll lean into it. But for me, the biggest thing that I find interesting and why I love cider, I love good cider more than any other drink, is because how it plays. So when I'm drinking a really nice cider that I want to delve into and go into, I'll have the aroma first, and then you have that sip, and it's almost like there's, say, about a 10-second kind of like sensation, and I can kind of pick out what I like and where it is within that. And on top of that, you've then got how it feels in the mouth. So like a lot of the tannic stuff I either get right at the front, like the roof of my mouth by the front teeth, or like right at the back on the tongue, and I can kind of pick where it's staying, when it's staying, and how long it's staying, and what that staying power does with all the other components. So something that's long, it has a long finish. If there's no fruit there and you're just getting that dry texture, that's completely different to something that, say, has like just raspberries and then that's lasting forever, or something that's bright citric and it finishes. It's like, but you have to have the confidence to drink those drinks, recognize that, and then go forward. Otherwise you're just going, oh, it's really appley, because yes, this is all from apples. So you're not wrong, but the joy is the nuance.
Well, yeah, I think it's actually important that you mentioned where you feel it in your mouth. Like, that's not something I think a lot of people think about, and not something I did until someone said that you where do you feel it on your mouth, on your tongue and in your mouth, and how long do you feel it for? And does that change? Does it move? Does it start at the front does it start on the tip of your tongue and then in the finish it's at the back? That's a really important point, actually, to think and to be conscious of it when you take a drink. If it's something you want to do, I'm not saying everyone has to do this when they drink cider, but if you're if it is something you want to expand your knowledge of, then drinking consciously is important, and it's not something that I did until fairly recently, to be honest.
Well,
I don't mean like last month, but
last week.
Yeah. It was on the numbnets as well.
Whoa, guys, what the fuck is
pockets? Pockets of flavour? You fucking having a laugh? But,
what, you mean the bubbles do something?
But for me, like, I know we've spoke a lot about like a maker's signature, and it depends on their place and like the apples they've got and their wild yeast. And I know we spoke about it with like Ross brought it up. Albert from Ross on Y brought up with Tom Oliver's and saying like you can kind of pick his out. The thing that I always pick out of his is that it sounds silly, but my teeth are the first to get tannins on them. Every time I get this like light fuzz in, and it's so weird. You're like, this is so specific. I don't have this in any other drink. And that's just how the tannins and that play to me. And whenever I've had something like, say a single variety from him that I've been like, oh, we'll just try this. The first thing I get is like right at the front of the mouth, that, and I'm like, oh yes, I know who this is. Like, but then that's from spending a lot of my own hard-earned money on his stuff. So you've just got to keep drinking drinks that command your respect, and hopefully they live up to it. Because a lot of them that I've tried over the years aren't as good as you've made them out to be in your head, and they don't play like that. And when they don't play like that, it's okay to go, it just tastes like green apples. Like that's fine.
There we go. Basically, drink lots of cider, I think, is the primary takeaway that we've had. Is just keep drinking cider and keep having a go. Don't be afraid to ask those questions and to put those things. But you're right. There's a big difference between actual taste and how it plays in that mouthfeel, and again being able to sort of express that. So, Batch Cider, thank you for the questions. Hope that's been of some assistance and not just general ramble. And now you know about a tomato knife as well. So it's all useful information, even if you didn't ask for it. And the advice obviously is do not utilize a tomato knife to chop your badminton net up. Hey. So there we go. That's a wrap on another episode of Neutral Cider Hotel. Thank you all for listening. May your eggs Benedict be freshly made and your tomato knives be sharpened. And a big thank you, as always, to our fantastic listeners. You make our show, you make us whole, you make us complete. And please do, obviously, tell everybody that you know to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. Follow on Spotify or listen on your favorite podcast app. We're on Instagram and now on Facebook. Neutral Cider Hotel is the tag. We're on Twitter. That's Neutral Cider Pod, and website details are neutralciderhotel.com. Martyn, Grant, well, what a show. What a hoot, as ever. Any final things to sign off with? Great. Thank you very much. We will look forward to seeing you next week for another show. All the best.